In this episode, we take a look at the dumpster fire that is Ohio's redistricting process after the 2020 census. Then we talk about the lack of research of the use of Ivermectin as a treatment for COVID and the lengths one woman went to force a hospital to treat her husband with it. Finally, we look at what we can do after the recent non-decision by the U.S. Supreme Court concerning that ridiculous anti-abortion law that took effect recently in Texas. I'm Doug Berger, and this is Secular Left. Before I get started with the show today, I just wanted to explain that we are doing for the first time a video version of the podcast. And so I want to, hopefully, going forward, is record this podcast as a video first, and then strip out the audio and publish it as a regular podcast and do all the things I normally do. But then we have pictures. Instead of a static picture, me in front of this backdrop here, and see, I'm still kind of working on the video here. So I apologize in advance for any technical glitches. I can see that there's some artifacts from my green screen and that sort of thing. I'm just learning. It's all one person doing it, and so hopefully we'll be able to get it together. The first thing I wanted to talk about today is in the year 2021, it's redistricting time. Every 10 years after a census, the state legislatures in every state get together and they redraw the congressional maps, the state district maps, House district maps, to better have enough so that everybody gets represented. So that everybody gets represented correctly due to population and where they live. In 2011, the last time that redistricting took place, the majority party here in Ohio, the Republicans, actually came up with the maps, the district maps, in secret behind a private access hotel room that they affectionately called the bunker. And then they released these maps only a few days before they were voted on. And because the Republicans have a majority in the Ohio legislature, they passed. It was some awful gerrymandering took place. One of them was what they call the snake. That is Congressional District 9 that Marcy Kaptur is part of. And it goes from Toledo across the shore of Lake Erie over to the Cleveland area. It's a little thin line there. A couple of things about the new one was that people got together and decided to put a stop to that kind of gerrymandering in secret, drawing the maps in secret. So they passed a couple of constitutional amendments to the Ohio Constitution that would force the map making out into the public, and that would take place. This is the first redistricting that is under the new rules. So of course the Republican majority has been dragging it out, dragging their feet, not wanting to take care of it as like they should. And so what they've been doing is, first of all, they scheduled public meetings in the middle of the week at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, where most people won't be able to attend. Most people that might be interested to have a job won't be able to attend. The other thing that happened was that all the maps to be considered by the redistricting commission had to be submitted by September the 1st. That was in the Constitution. That did not happen. The Republicans did not submit their maps. The Democratic side did. And so the Republican maps were just released this past week. And they are going to have a couple of public hearings. And then they essentially voted on them already. This redistricting commission is made up of a majority of Republicans, of course, because that's the makeup of it. It's based on the who has the majority. And they've already decided that those maps that they've already created are going to be the working maps. So any changes are going to come out of those maps. One of the things, and it's hard to explain gerrymandering to people. They're not quite sure how it goes. So I wanted to bring up this group, this social justice group here in Ohio called All In. Had a series of maps to demonstrate what exactly is happening, particularly with people of color, neighborhoods with people of color, either blacks or Hispanics, that sort of thing, and how they're being done. So I wanted to show you this example, and I'll have this up in the show notes. I'll link to I'll link to the group, and I'll link to the image, and I'll put the image up on the show notes so those that aren't watching the video can actually see. But I'll explain it, hopefully, in a clear manner. So let's take a look at this map. Now this map is Toledo, and the kind of lighter shades, kind of the transparent boxes that you see here, those are census neighborhoods that are predominantly people of color in the city of Toledo. And that's in the core of the city, in the near west side, a little bit south side. That's generally correct. And then the heavy lines that you see are the new district lines that the Republicans want to create. And so what you'll notice is that we have a large group there right in the center that is split into two different districts. And the neighborhoods themselves are split into two different districts. And so basically what that means is they're trying to pack as many people of color into as few as districts as possible. And then there's also I also have a link to a Columbus Dispatch article that really explains the whole process of redistricting. But basically what happens is that there's a certain percentage, it's 5% on either side of a population level, that the maps can be set up as. So you can either be a plus 5% more than your actual population, or you can be a negative 5%. So it's a 10% spread, complete spread. Now, some of the reports, and I haven't been able to verify this, so I'm going by people that I trust that are covering or watching this situation. They say that in some districts, the Republicans have massaged the works in that some districts have way more than 10% population in their favor. So, but anyway, so what this map shows is that they're trying to pack as many people of color into as few districts as possible, and then the ones that they can't pack in, then they what they call crack back. They crack up. They split them up into more districts. Usually, then they apply them. They put them in districts that have the way they called it, drowned out into an otherwise white, rural, and conservative district. So basically what the Republicans are attempting to do is to dilute the vote of the people of color. And that's two ways you do that. You pack them into very few districts so they don't have any strength, or you just dilute them completely. You put them in a district that has more whites or rural area or whatever. that way then their votes don't mean. Essentially, then they aren't able to elect the people that they wish to represent them. And that's why that's bad. The other thing, too, that I wanted to mention about the makeup here, besides the people of color being screwed over, is that, as the Dispatch explains in their work, is that some of the districts that in the last election leaned Democrat, they've redrawn the lines so that those districts that lean Democrat now lean Republican. And that has a smell to it, like they're doing shenanigans. For example, there's one district, it's the 16th Senate District in Franklin County. It currently favors Democrats 52.2% to 45.6%. The new map from the Republicans has the new district would favor Republicans 51.7% to 46.0%. That's a complete, almost 180 flip from leaning Democrat to leaning Republican. And in the last election for that seat, Stephanie Coons, who's a Republican from Hilliard, just barely won her election over the Democratic challenger, Crystal Lett, by 116 votes. So you can see flipping it as much as they did from 52-45 to 51-46 shows that they're trying to gerrymander the district. So the net result of the gerrymandering that the Republicans are attempting to do, and against the wishes of the people that passed the two constitutional amendments in 2015 and I believe 2016, is they're going to try to increase their supermajority to a 25-8 seat difference. And that just seems wrong. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. The official maps have not been adopted yet, but it's just a matter of time. What can happen next, though, is the Democrats have to agree to the maps. And we won't get into my issue with the two-party system. That's for another episode. But according to the law, the Democrats have to agree to the map. It has to be bipartisan. If it is not, then the maps, if they are adopted without Democratic support, would only be valid for 4 years. Then they'd have to come back and do it again. Now, I've just figured the Republicans, that's what they want. They just want a 4-year map. Because then they can do whatever they want for the next 4 years and game the system and make it worse. So that they'll get whatever it is they want the next time. You know, they can keep playing this. They can keep kicking the can down the road, even though it's against the Constitution, the Ohio Constitution. And so we'll see what happens. But the main thing is that the redistricting process is happening. If you're interested in the process or interested in what happens, check out some of the more progressive groups online that are following it, such as the League of Women Voters, that All In Ohio, and some other places. The ACLU, I believe, is following it, and because it's not going to end easily for people right now. For more information about any of the topics covered in this episode, check out our show notes at secularleft.us. If you've been following the news about the pandemic, and I know I promised I was not going to talk about the anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers again after my last episode when I said I did not have enough fucks to give to talk about them again. But this was an interesting story, and that's why I'm going to talk about it. There was a man down in Butler County here in Ohio who got sick with COVID-19 was put in the hospital in the ICU. His wife, who is, for all intents and purposes, anti-vaxxer, just because she doesn't trust the COVID vaccine, wanted the hospital to treat her husband with ivermectin. Now, ivermectin, in case you don't know, is a parasitic treatment for horses and other animals, other farm animals. It rids the animals of parasites, worms, things like that. It's also been used to address a problem that's common in the third world or in Africa and in South America called river worm blindness. And what happens is there's a little fly that will bite and lay an egg, and the worm that grows will enter your eye and live in your eye, and it makes these people go blind. And ivermectin is known and it is approved to fight that parasite. So it is used on people in that situation. You might have heard some conspiracy theories about ivermectin that people OD from it. It's very, very, very rare and almost impossible to overdose on ivermectin. It's a paste. It's like a toothpaste. But so that's one of the stories. Anyway, so this woman wanted her husband treated with ivermectin, and the hospital refused because it is not approved for human use to treat COVID. There is no scientific consensus. There's no scientific research on if it's effective. It's not approved. It's not They don't know if it's effective. It's a crapshoot. Okay, so a hospital should not be forced to treat somebody with an unapproved medicine. That's just basic health medical ethics. So like I said, there's no current research that ivermectin treats COVID-19 that takes care of it in any way. Some medical people say they've used it or used it on patients, but it's not approved as a treatment. And so I would not want to do it. If I had COVID, I would not want to have them treat. But anyway, so this hospital in Butler County refused to use it on a patient. The wife sued and took him to court. And finally, in a recent court decision, the woman lost. And I'm going to throw the link up in the show notes, of course, but I wanted to share a part. There's a twist, just a twist. This is what made this story interesting. This is why I wanted to share it with people today. Her name is Julie Smith is the wife. I forget what the husband's name is. I don't have it in my notes, but you can check out the article. It's on the Ohio Capitol Journal, written by Jake Zuckerman, and it was published on September the 6th, 2021. So if you want to look it up. But let's take a look at this quote from the article. It says, Julie Smith testified that neither she nor her husband were vaccinated against COVID-19. She said it was, quote, experimental, unquote, so she didn't trust it. We didn't feel confident it had been out long enough, she said during a hearing Thursday. She later connected with Dr. Fred Wagshaw, a founding physician of the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. So you know they must be experts, right? Whatever. A nonprofit that touts ivermectin as a wonder drug. Wagshaw is a licensed physician, but is not board certified within any specialty, and hasn't worked in a hospital for 10 years, according to his testimony. He admitted this in court, so at least he's telling the truth in court about his own work experience. Oh, and I do have the husband's name. The husband's name was Jeffrey. So the doctor, Wagshaw, prescribed Jeffrey Smith 21 days worth of ivermectin without reviewing Jeffrey Smith's clinical information or talking to any of his treating physicians. he told the court the pharmaceutical industry and U.S. government had smeared ivermectin and censored its allegedly undeniable beneficial value. However, when asked if it had benefited Smith, he hedged. I honestly don't know, but the rule of thumb is when something is working, you don't stop it, he said. So I was laughing pretty hard after reading that. So the wife says that neither one of them were vaccinated because they thought the vaccine was experimental. But there's no current scientific basis or proof that ivermectin treats COVID. If you want to talk about experimental, that's experimental. And so it amazes me. It's just, that's experimental, is the ivermectin, not the thing. And they have millions of doses have been given of the various vaccines. There's even some vaccines that have been developed that haven't come to the United States, like from Russia and other places. And if you would have heard anything, I mean, I have not heard anything massively bad about any of these vaccines. They do have an emergency order of approval, and they wouldn't have done that if there was any hint that these vaccines were dangerous. And even then, a lot of times if there's a vaccine that has really nasty side effects, sometimes they weigh that with, well, how bad is whatever the disease that we want to fight. But it was just amazing that this woman said that the vaccines were experimental, but the ivermectin, yeah, put that in my husband. That's great. I love it. But that's the kind of logic that we have to deal with these anti-vaxxers. They do their own research on YouTube and Google, or they hear it from a friend who heard it from a friend, and they accept it. But yet the government and scientists tell them something else, and they refuse to accept it. It's just amazing. Like I said, I had planned not to talk about them this time. I really hate talking about these people. It's just getting bad, and the numbers are going up. We've had thousands of people that have been infected with the new variant and are going into the hospital, and it's just really sad. It just really is sad, but that's a good story. At least it provided me with some humor. I know these people, I shouldn't be laughing at their misfortune, but I don't know. Sometimes I just have to, or I don't know. I don't know if I'd get out of bed in the morning. Hello, this is Doug, host of Secular Left, reminding you that I like to be validated. If you like this podcast and want to thank me, feel free to buy me a coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/secularleft and donate some cash to help make this a better show and validate me as a person. You'll feel better in the morning. Okay, what I wanted to talk about today is, just like everybody else, I was pretty taken aback and sad by the recent non-decision by the U.S. Supreme Court to even try to invalidate the recent anti-abortion law that went into effect in Texas. Basically what it does is it prevents a woman from getting an abortion at 6 weeks, which rational people and scientists know is an arbitrary line. Babies are not viable at 6 weeks. There is no heartbeat at 6 weeks. There's heart membrane that does vibrate, but it's not a heart. It's not a heartbeat. The other thing it does is it deputizes the citizens of Texas to turn in people who assist, anyone who assists in an abortion, whether paying for it or donating to groups that support it, or driving the woman to a clinic, or even performing an abortion. And what you can do is you can report them to the state, and then you can file a lawsuit for monetary damages. In the state law, you can get damages of up to $10,000. And you don't get that money from the state. That comes from the person that you sue. So let's say I give $5 to an abortion group in Texas that helps transport women across state lines to get an abortion. Somebody finds out. Because you donate money, usually you can find out. Well, if it's a Republican group, you won't find out. But if it's a regular group, you'll find out sometimes because they have to report who donated money, that sort of thing. Anyway, so somebody finds out and they sue me for $10,000. If I lose in court, then I would have to pay the $10,000, not the state of Texas. And that was one of the reasons why the court refused to even attempt to rule on the law, because they claim that they can't review a law where a state agency isn't enforcing it. It's hogwash, but anyway, the bounties on people, to turn people in to try to get $10,000 on the face, and I'm not a lawyer, that seems highly unconstitutional. That violates my First Amendment right to donate money to causes and people of my choosing. That's political speech. If I donate money to Planned Parenthood, that's political speech. That's protected by the First Amendment. It doesn't matter if you don't like it, if it funds an activity that you don't like. Abortion is still the law of the land. It is still legal. And if I am helping somebody do their activity or legal constitutional activity, then I cannot be sued for that. I cannot be punished for that. And that's just the fact. Of course, now this law is on the books. It's active. So now we're going to have to wait until somebody actually tries to get sued by it in order for them to challenge the law. That's what they were attempting to do when the Supreme Court said, we don't know, this is a new law. We don't know what to do. And so now we'll have to wait until somebody gets try to get $10,000 and they take them to court. Because I think the people trying to get the $10,000, I think they're going to lose. Because I really do think that this law is unconstitutional. It does have, as I said, part of it's the heartbeat bill that Ohio passed a couple of years ago, where it bans abortion at 6 weeks, which again is not viability. Nobody in the medical community says that a fetus is viable at 6 weeks. It's just a collection of cells. It's just a little zygote. It does not have a heart. It does not have a brain. It does not feel pain. That is just a simple scientific fact. So I was feeling sad, a little depressed about this. The religious people, they're winning. They're winning at the courts. They're winning in the state legislatures. And sometimes it gets really hard to try to fight back. So I was like thinking, well, what can I do? Well, what we need to do is we need to pass a law that invalidates all these state laws, because that's what Congress does. And so I was going to call my congressperson, who happens to be Marcy Kaptur in the 9th District, who is not a fan of abortion. She's very flaming Catholic, and she hasn't been totally negative about it, but she's said in interviews that she does not like abortion. Anyway, so I was like going to really enjoy that call. The other one I could call is Bob Latta in the 5th District. And I know he's pro-life. Anyway, so then I see an article where they talk about there's already a law that has been introduced. And I just want to show the screen capture from, I think this is from the Library of Congress, where they list bills and such, and information about bills. And this is H.R. 3755, the Women's Health Protection Act of 2021. And unlike Republicans who like to name their bills for the complete opposite of what they're supposed to do, the items in this bill actually do what the title says: protects women's health. And what it would do is it would codify Roe v. Wade, the court decision from 1973. And I can believe that bill, that Roe v. Wade decision has not been codified since 1973. Because abortion is a controversial topic for politicians. Most people, and true, back in 1973, the popular opinion about abortion wasn't that great. It's gotten better in recent years, but I can understand why politicians don't want to touch that topic with a 10-foot pole. And so they've never, in the 48 years since that decision, they have never taken that decision and put it into a public law that applies to the entire country. Because if they did, then Texas's law would go bye-bye. Ohio's many nitpicking trap regulations would go bye-bye. And women once again would be able to obtain abortions on demand. Now, I'll tell you right here, right from the get-go, I am not a fan of abortion. I don't think abortion, we shouldn't need abortion, put it that way. However, there are certain times and certain situations where an abortion will be necessary, such as a pregnancy resulting from a rape or incest. Maybe a woman finds out she has cancer and she's been pregnant and her health will be compromised. Or maybe the baby is going to compromise a woman's health and needs to be terminated. Whatever. It needs to be available on demand. I don't personally like it, but I don't have to get an abortion. Just like I tell all of my conservative friends, yes, you don't like abortion, don't get one. Because the next thing that they go after is birth control and family planning. So that's what they're going to do. And they've already started. Here in Ohio, they went after what they call chemical abortions. That's where you take a couple series of pills. Instead of a surgical abortion, now they've restricted that to where you actually have to go to a doctor and get it prescribed. Previously, it was available through telemedicine and over the counter. And so that's one thing. And then they're going to go after birth control pills and IUDs IUDs, yeah. Not the bombs, the birth control. Anyway, so that's what they're going to do because they don't want women to have any control of their reproductive rights at all. It's against their religion. So we have this bill, H.R. 3755, and it's been introduced in some form or another in the last couple of Congresses, last 3 or 4 Congresses, and now's the time to get it passed. There are 48 co-sponsors in the Senate, which is good. You'll probably need 60 votes because they won't get rid of the filibuster. But this is a good time to get rid of the filibuster. Get rid of the filibuster. You pass this bill. You also pass the Voting Rights Act to restore the voting rights. Those are, basic American rights, and they need to be for everybody. And so we need to get rid of the filibuster to get these. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go and contact your elected representatives, your senators, and demand that this bill be passed as soon as possible. Because there's because I'm going to tell you that it's not going to be, Jane Doe in suburban Sylvania township that is going to be affected by not having the right to abortion, because they're always going to be able to get an abortion. They'll be able to go to a hospital, and under the table, wink wink, they'll get an abortion because they can pay for it. What these laws actually do is they actually affect poor people, people that can't afford to go into a hospital to have this type of surgery done. So they're the ones that are going to be stuck with children that they don't want, or they're going to have children that maybe have birth defects, or they can't afford to raise them, or something like that, or it's the result of a rape or an incest. And so it's going to be the people that can't afford it that are going to suffer. You know, the Jane Doe out in the suburbs is not going to suffer. She's going to drive to do her soccer mom duties, and then she's like, I'm going to go do a spa one weekend, and she's going to terminate a pregnancy. And then she's going to come back and go with her friends and drink wine and cheese at a restaurant. And they're going to laugh and talk about their day and everything. Poor people, they're not going to get a chance. So that's why we need to codify abortion rights in the law now, today. So call them up. Right now, after the show, call them up. Thank you for listening to this episode. You can check out more information, including links to sources used, in our show notes on our website at secularleft.us. Secular Left is hosted, written, and produced by Doug Berger, and he is solely responsible for the content. Send us your comments, either using the contact form on the website or by sending us a note at comments@secularleft.us. Our theme music is Dank and Nasty, composed using Amplify Studio. See you next time.